A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan is the 7th book of the Wheel of Time series. So this book, I gotta say, it's very similar to Lord of Chaos. I didn't not like the book, but I felt it was a little repetitive and slow. This book takes it easy after the events of Lord of Chaos. Characters are sort of easing into their roles a little bit more. I noticed that Rand doesn't do much in this book. He sort of defers to other people a lot, gets depressed. He's not really going on any big outward journey in this book. The characters who have the more interesting story is Matt, Elaine, and Nynaeve. They are still in Abu Dar, and they haven't found the magical item that they're looking for. However, the best part of this book is the humor. The humor is hilarious. Matt has to deal with the different culture that they've never been in. Abu Dar is another country that they're visiting, and over there they have very different customs. The women have these marriage daggers that they wear at all times. They have a certain number of jewels on the dagger to show how many children they've lost to duels, because everyone in Abu Dar likes to pick fights with each other, and people end up dead over the littlest and dumbest things. So I really like the world building, and the best part of this book for me was the hilarious humor of Matt's misadventures in the palace. Basically, he's becoming his own man and with his men, and a sort of adoptive father to that young boy. So it's really interesting. He also develops there's a lot of character development for Matt actually in this book. He also develops a friendship with another character, a few other characters actually. The book also introduces two main characters, I guess, going forward. A powerful Aes Sedai, who is been in retirement of sorts, and another dark one of sorts. Another, not a dark one obviously, but I mean another henchman of the Dark One who's powerful in his own right. So those two characters are definitely going to, be important later on. However, this book sort of, doesn't have much going on besides, this and that. And then the climax is very rushed. It's very similar to Lord of Chaos, in which, you're sort of sitting there, all of a sudden it's like, boom, we're going to have the climax now. And that felt kind of repetitive, Overall, Crown of Swords is it's a meh entry in the Wheel of Time book series. But, it was a fast read for me, despite being, I think it's maybe one of the shortest books of all of them. It's only around 650 pages. It might be because I have this mass market paper bound that I read. But either way, the pacing was fast. I liked the world building in Abu Dar and the humor, Matt's character development. Didn't like Rand's storyline this time. They kind of shafted him a little bit. But it's interesting to see, all these elements be introduced, and we'll see how they go going forward. And I believe this book also has Perrin do something too. He's going to be doing something on the back burner. So they're sort of juggling sort of things around. There's no big events happening because, 2 books ago they had some pretty big stuff happen. So I guess they're sort of just in a setup phase. So that's what I feel about A Crown of Swords, book number 7 of the Wheel of Time series. The Path of Daggers by Robert Jordan is the 8th book of the Wheel of Time series. So this volume, we're now more than halfway through the halfway point of the 14 books. So, at this point of the series, either you're in or you're out, right? So this volume pretty much focuses on Rand. Rand is dealing with the sort of setup from the Crown of Swords. There's a lot of setup after that in that book. This book skips Matt. We don't know what happens to him yet. The book explores a little bit of everyone else, though. Nynaeve and Elaine are dealing with the Saladar rebels, and they're doing something, and they're marching towards Tar Valon. Meanwhile, those two are actually in Abu Dar, and they're dealing with the item that they found, and they're basically finishing off the story that we didn't get at the end of A Crown of Swords, which is fine. I mean, sometimes you can't tie up every storyline per book that you introduce. And then there's a little bit of Egwene there. She's dealing with politics as well. So the main story is about Rand, and I really liked this volume because we get some really big action sequences. Since A Crown of Swords was mostly a setup book, not a lot happens. This one, it gets dark. There's some really good battle sequences in here. and I really liked that big battle near the end, and that was probably the highlight of the book for sure, because the Shin-chan are here, and basically we haven't really had a battle with them yet. I know that the events of book 2 happened, but that wasn't really a battle. They didn't. I noticed that when that climax happened in book 2, they didn't really get into it. It was more of a, you know, a montage, just sort of. It was well described, but it wasn't. It was like a full-on victory for you know who won. It was a full-on victory against the Shin-chan. There was no real battle. It was a stomping. It was a massacre from the good guys, basically. So this book, however, has them return. You get a little bit more of their society. You get a few more new creatures as well. So, you know, you get a little bit of everything. So far, they haven't really explored any of the hierarchy, though. I mean, we have the Lady Saroth. She's kind of like a sub-emperor. But then there's the Empress, who probably not even there with them. But we get a few perspectives from some of the smaller characters, commanders, and of the like that. And they also introduce some new elements in there. Characters introduced in the Crown of Swords now have a bigger sort of more to do, like Cad Swain, and other characters are introduced, sort of. And I guess this is a very satisfying novel for me. That big action sequence at the end is definitely worth it. The story gets dark, and they're starting to set up things for a grand sort of. I like how they're introducing multiple antagonists, right? There's a Forsaken, you know, they're there. And then there's like the rebels that are always at his heels. There are people that don't want him conquering half the world. You know, there's White Cloaks, there's the White Tower. You know, there's always these little dark friends. And so then the Shin-chan are another big threat looming over. It's great to have all these multiple antagonists so that, you know, the storyline doesn't get, you know, stale. Because, you know, I don't want to just see him face a Forsaken every now and then. It's nice to have different antagonists. So the Path of Daggers also introduces a Perrin doing a small sort of task on his own. There's only one thing I didn't like about this book. At the end, they sort of do a paragraph of each different character, like a cliffhanger of thing. I didn't need that. They should have just ended it after that action sequence. I didn't need to have like, oh, this person's doing this person's doing this person's doing this. Check out the next book to find out what happened. I don't need that. Come on, this is book 8, man. You don't need to give me cliffhanger paragraphs to tell me what's going on. Just they could have edited that part out. But other than that, though, it's a very satisfying novel. Book 8 is solid. So I'll keep reading from there, obviously.